honestly. And, I've talked about this numerous times as well. It's definitely something I would love to connect with you on, maybe even help promote on my TV show, because it's very important. My ideas are basically we ought to have 2 terms of the Senate. If they're going to be 6-year terms, that's it. 2 terms and you're done. I would like to see 4 2-year terms for the House. I would like to see 1 4-year term for the presidency with the ability to win re-election for 2 more years. And then I'd like to see even the Supreme Court have a 15-year term and then have to be reconfirmed for an additional 10. I've talked about that at length for many, many years, at least since 2014 on numerous shows. So it's wonderful, Sara, to hear somebody that is bright and articulate as yourself that can speak intelligently about it and to help spread that message and convey it to others, because we need bold leadership. And if we're going to get rid of the Washington corruption and we're going to decentralize the corrupt power structure of Washington, then the best thing to do is to limit the time of the people that are corrupt.
Josh, I couldn't agree more. And you and Jiggy join 82% of voters on both sides of the aisle and independents support enacting term limits. And, like I say, if it's good enough for the President of the United States, 15 states, 8 out of 10 of our largest cities, and 36 governors, we should hold Congress to the same exact standard. And one of the things, and I would love to connect with you and the work that you're doing through your show, one of the things that I think is important for me taking on this role in Kansas is I don't come from the political establishment. In fact, in my race last cycle, I was the political outsider. I was a CEO. I ran the National Down Syndrome Society with limited resources, a nonprofit. And during my tenure at NDSS, we were able to actually get Congress to agree on something that people with disabilities should be able to save their own money for their expenses. And that was actually amending the tax code. Josh, we got 85% of the entire Congress to support that legislation. Bernie Sanders and Jim Jordan to agree on the same exact bill. And so if we can do that for people with disabilities, we should be able to do that here in Kansas and hold our elected officials in Washington accountable.
So IQ Al Rizzoli, listening to all this, what do you have for Sara while we've got her here?
I congratulate her. Really, there's not much to add. I agree with everything, because all these things will clear the swamp. You need blood. You need new people. You need people who haven't been corrupted for the last 20, 30, 40 years. It's obscene to have some of them 30 years in Congress. I mean, this is abnormal. It's like you have a hereditary takeover, literally. No, term limits should be the new standard.
Some of these elected officials in Washington have been serving longer than I've even been alive, and I've already run for one. So I couldn't agree more. And just for your listeners out there, there are ways for individuals to get off their couch, pick up their phone, and engage on this issue, because the more support and the more action we have, the more successful we're going to be here in Kansas, but all across the country. And on our term limits website, you can encourage your own elected officials, your state senator or your state representative, to sign our legislator or our candidate pledge. It's really important that we get and we generate that support here in Topeka so we can enact a new resolution so Kansas can join 4 other states that have passed a resolution calling for this convention so we can move this issue forward. Florida, West Virginia, Missouri, and Alabama have already done that.
Wow.
Tennessee passed their resolution today in the House, and North Carolina has done that as well. So a lot of movement and momentum in 2 states. And, your individual listeners can go on to our term limits webpage as well and sign our supporter pledge. We need that momentum. We need the grassroots, and we need our elected officials in Congress to pay attention to the people.
Sara, I have a question for you. Obviously, I laid out a blueprint that I feel would be, a decent approach to any type of term limits. But I'm interested, you being, obviously probably more versed on it even than myself, what kind of specifics as far as the different branches of government, as I have called out the ones that I think they should be, what is the official position of the term limits group on each individual aspect of government? So in other words, the House, the Senate, the presidency, and even in the Supreme Court.
Sure. Well, the presidency obviously is set. I think our goal right here is to push states forward so that that Congress is looking to the states for this action. It's going to be really difficult for Congress to impose term limits on itself. And so that's why we're working through this process right now, Josh. We need 2/3 of the state legislatures to pass bills applying for a convention to consider these amendments. That's the first step. Congress is compelled by law as the second step to call this convention to order, which includes delegates chosen solely by their individual states. And then, of course, the convention reports out an amendment for congressional term limits, and that's where that will really come into play. I like your recommendations, and I think we need to ensure that term limits are enacted, and Congress is that first step in this process. I spent time in Washington during my tenure at the National Down Syndrome Society, and I've seen the same leaders hold the same positions in both parties,
Yes.
the same positions. And it has to change. And, frankly, we need a new generation of leaders to step up and lead this country into a different direction.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Is this a situation where we would need 37 out of 50 states to sign on to this in order to enact the Convention of States for this?
Yes. So we would need 3/4, which is about 38 states. Yes.
38. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we have
Wow.
4 or 5?
We have 4 that
You
have
got a ways to go. But you know what? There's no hill too big to climb, right?
There isn't, and I'm going to be pushing on our state senators and our state representatives here in Topeka and all across the state to join me and not only taking this pledge, but helping us move this resolution forward. We frankly just can't wait any longer for term limits to be enacted across this country.
Yeah, because
that's for sure. I mean, I would even take it even a step further. I mean, with everything that we have now, from Zoom calls to Skype to GoToMeeting and all that, there's no reason why we should have permanent people in Washington, to be quite honest. I mean, I think there should be a rule against having permanent residents within 100 miles of Washington, D.C., and therefore you're really a representative of your people, in your constituents, in your state. Maybe you fly in just to do votes and then you fly back out of town. I would love to see something like that, but of course, we have to get through, term limits first before we can even get to something like that. And the other thing is the spending. It's out of control, the spending. If we would basically say that a certain amount of money, let's say $100,000 or more, has to be done through ballot initiatives, in the respective states, then you would really have a cut down on a lot of the spending, where someone in Virginia says, well, I'm not going to vote on that unless you do a Virginia medical center and put my name on it, or whatever it is that it may be. If people in Montana want to vote for studying bear hibernation, well, then they should have the ability to figure that out on their own in a ballot initiative in their respective states. I think that's another big thing we need to do, is to take away the spending ability from Congress and actually put it back into the states. Let them do it. So those are some of the ideas that I have, of course.
Those are fantastic ideas, Josh. As Ronald Reagan once said, the only experience you get in politics is how to be political. And that problem we have with Congress right now is it's too political, it's too divisive, and we don't have enough real world experience. I mean, we find ourselves in the middle of a global pandemic. We need physicians at the center of solving these healthcare policy crises that we're dealing with. We need teachers to have a better handle on the education policy, and term limits would give people with real world experience the chance to step up and lead and truly make an impact.
Yep.
So, IQ Al Rizzoli, sitting here listening to our guest and Mr. Josh Bernstein, what do you have to add to the conversation, sir?
Look, I love what they're saying. I mean, there's absolutely no question about what they're saying and what they're doing. The question is, do we have time? My worry has always been, since the American public, the 80 million stupid animals who elected him, I don't miss my words.
No, you don't.
I don't have to. I'm not American yet. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
Why don't you just
from
sneak
that
over the
point of
border
view,
like
what
everybody
I'm
else
worried
does?
about, what I'm worried about is, do we have, by 2022, the ability to reverse Congress to Republican? That's what worries me. Because if you can't do it in 2022, you're not going to have 2024 or anything after that. What do you think, Sarah?
I think you're absolutely right. Time is of the essence here. And, I think election cycle after election cycle, and, I experienced it as a political candidate myself, how divisive things are on social media, online, and obviously in person. And I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm so excited to take on this leadership role for the state of Kansas, my home state, and work as quickly as possible to get this resolution passed here in Topeka.
So, where do you see this whole thing going towards the midterms? Do you think that if we can, do you think you'll be able to get this passed in a year and a half, or?
We're going to move very, very quickly. Obviously, we're in a consolidated time frame here in Topeka with the Kansas legislature, but I think we can move very, very fast. It took me 8 years and 4 Congresses to pass a major tax bill that had spending associated with it in Washington, D.C., and getting Jim Jordan, Bernie Sanders to support that effort. And we passed it actually with a divided House and Senate. Harry Reid was leading the Senate. John Boehner was leading the House, and President Obama actually signed it into law. So if I can do it there, I can get this done here in Topeka.
So one of the things that I think is great about all this is that you've got Josh, who is a conservative and is a Republican. IQ is in the middle on things. I hear from our listeners who are progressives and Democrats, and everybody agrees on term limits. Why is this so hard for people to get? Is it just like Josh says, because all these guys and girls are making so much damn money, they just don't want to leave?
Well, to break that down, Jiggy, 82% of the overall public supports term limits. That's about 89% of Republicans, 76% of Democrats, and 83% of independents, according to a recent study and a recent poll. So it's popular. It's probably, I would beg to put a lot of money on this. It's probably the most bipartisan issue in America right now. I think we just need the muster. We need to put some grassroots advocacy into this, and we need people. We need your listeners to speak out. And again, they can do that by going on to our termlimits.com webpage, or just pick up the phone or send a quick email to your state senator and your state representative, encouraging them to sign this resolution and sign the pledge.
We need some conservative groups out there that have a lot of muscle, a lot of clout, a lot of power, and of course a lot of cash, to basically say, if you want our endorsement, and I don't know what the group would be, but whatever the group would be, if you want our endorsement, then you need to sign on to a pledge that you will introduce term limits in your first term in office. I think that we need brave, bold people that want to serve the people and not themselves. I think that's harder and harder to find these days. People used to work part-time in Washington. It was never supposed to be a career. And now not only is it a career, but they go there poor and they come back multimillionaires. And that means that the system is fundamentally broken. And so I think that, we ought to have the ability to push not just the people, but also the people that are going to have to enact the laws. And those are the politicians, to have the bravery, almost like embarrass them, like, oh, you didn't sign the pledge? So in other words, you want to be one of those lifetime, long-term politicians that, ends up becoming a vampire and sucking off the blood of the American people? We ought to embarrass them and say, like, look, if you really want to be for the people, then you have no idea, you should have no problem then to sign this pledge. So I think that maybe some organizations out there that have some power and money and clout ought to get their heads together and come up with something for endorsements that these politicians are looking for that can sway elections, and say, look, if you don't introduce it, we're not going to support you.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. And that's why we encourage candidates, and again, I did this in 2020, 2019 cycle, to stand up and sign this pledge early. It was, in fact, one of the first things that I did on the campaign trail. I couldn't agree more, Josh. Our founding fathers intended for this to be a citizen legislature, and with term limits, there would be no more squatting in an office for 30, 40,
right.
50 years. The framers didn't intend for a career politician, and we need people in Washington. And again, I don't think in my lifetime, the time is now. I mean, we find ourselves in a difficult economic situation, a massive, major global pandemic. We need some new fresh blood in Washington helping lead on these issues, and I think term limits would help us accomplish all of that, delivering fresh faces and new ideas.
Have you reached out to the platform committee for the RNC and or the Freedom Caucus? Members like Andy Biggs and so many others, Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, and some of the more conservative members of Congress, to help them push this, to get them to adapt this as part of the 2022 platform for Republicans to run on?
It's definitely something we're pushing in Washington with those leaders that are already there, leading on these issues for the American people in Washington. So absolutely. And then what I'm happy to lead is this grassroots effort here in Kansas to do our part to educate the American people on how this process actually works. We need kind of that dual strategy, that dialogue happening in Washington, D.C., but we also need it to have that groundswell so we can get those 38 states to take action, to have the convention to really put this issue forward. Because while we have leaders from the Freedom Caucus that are championing these issues and understand the value of new, fresh faces in Washington, I think we still have that gridlock coming from those folks that have been squatting in those offices in the Capitol for 30, 40, and 50 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to help you with this any way that I can, help promote it, things like that. I was a national spokesperson for AMAC for many years, and they have about 1.8 million members. So I did a lot of radio and television, and on their behalf. They dropped me for Rudy Giuliani, but hey, Rudy Giuliani's a pretty big name, so I guess I can't complain. But I definitely would love to work with you on this and help you promote it.
I'd love that, Josh. I definitely look forward to circling back with you and figure out.
Oh God, don't use.
Yeah, I know. I just thought about that when she said circling back. I thought, is she going to be working for Biden?
Thingy, I'll circle back on with you. Freedom. Yeah, we'll circle back with that whole freedom thingy.
I'll send you a tweet. How about that?
There we go.
I'm not on Twitter. They threw me off a long
time ago.
Long time ago. I was on Roku television, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Facebook, you name it. Okay? I was exposing the voter fraud that was taking place 2 to 3 weeks before it actually took place. So I had over 1 million views a month. They said, bye-bye, Josh. We can't let you continue to speak freely. So I started my own website, joshbernsteinuncensored.com, and I get about 10,000 attacks a week, literally.
You were just in Newsweek.
I was just in Newsweek. They wanted comment from the White House. Yeah,
You're kind of a big deal, baby.
But now that I'm on my website, it's called Josh Bernstein Uncensored for a reason. It has nothing to do with language or anything. It has to do with the fact that I can cover certain stories that social media and mainstream media wouldn't even dare go near.
Yeah.
And so I feel liberated in that respect. But yeah, it was pretty tough. October 2020, they yanked me.
I think it was because of that Trump tracksuit that you wore on election night coverage. I still get comments from people about the Trump.
Oh, I love that. I still have it.
Tracksuit.
I still have it. I had about 20 Trump hats and about probably 30 Trump shirts, and I didn't throw any of them out. They're all in a big bag in my closet, and I've replaced them with anti-Biden gear. So we're in good shape.
That's awesome. So IQL Rizzoli, listening to all this, you watch all the different political things all over the globe. What do you have for our guest, Sara?
Well, Sara is right about the most important item. It is we, the people, who will decide the future of America, which means we, the ordinary American. If they don't support her website, if they don't literally go to her website and put their name on, the probability of change will be much less possible. The more of them who go to her website and put their name, the more the certainty will be that by 2022, she will do what she wants to do. It's we the people. I've always said it. When Trump was in power, I said he will never succeed if we the people do not back him up. Unfortunately, we the people did not back him up. Not at least not in enough numbers to win the election, a second one. That's really my take. Otherwise, there's nothing to add. She's doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Well, I definitely disagree with that last statement, IQ. We were definitely there in big numbers. This election was stolen. And I think anyone, even Stevie Wonder could see that they didn't win this election. There's no way.
George, I was with you on the 3rd of November. We calculated 299, if I remember the exact figure. We calculated 299 at 12 o'clock for Donald Trump. 6 to 12 hours later, and later on, it was all gone. So I'm using or assuming that 80 million people voted. I'm not saying they did. I'm assuming they did. But as I said, they were stupid.
IQ, you got to learn to speak up more, my friend. Let us know what's on your mind, brother.
If I speak up more, they will censor you forever.
Like me.
Part of the reason why we don't see IQ on Skype is because he does speak up. And how many fatwas do you have on your head, sir?
I'm not on video. It's because I'm incognito.
Yes.
I'm hiding. No, I'm serious, honestly. I'm hunted by the Muslims. I'm the foremost authority on Islam in the world today. I know it sounds like a brag. Do yourself a favor. Spend 10 minutes, not much of your time, 10 minutes. Google Al-Rasuli, A-L-R-A-S-S-O-L-I. And after 10 minutes, look at my website and tell me what you think. I never miss my word. I back up everything like Josh. I back up everything with verses and quotes from the Quran and the Hadith. In 14 years, I've never had a single Muslim come against me from CARE. I have challenged CARE for 14 years. I have $1.5 million worth of challenges. No human being in history ever did that. To prove me wrong. $1.5 million. It's a lot of money.
Yes.
How come nobody's taking a penny? They haven't had a dime. So, Sara, honestly, I'm not promoting anything. By the way, my books, my details are all free of charge. All 30 years of research are free of charge. I don't charge anybody anything. I only wanted people to learn what really Islam is all about. That's all. That's my objective. So it's up to you now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So Sarah, you said earlier you ran a political campaign or had a political campaign. What did you learn through that? I'm sure horrible process.
I always now introduce myself by telling folks that I did something that nobody should do. No, we need more leaders to step up and do this. No, I learned a lot. It was an incredible experience. What I try to do throughout my campaign is similar to what we're doing with this effort, is get people off the sidelines. I think there are so many Americans, there are so many Kansans, there's people in the 3rd district, my home district where I grew up, where I ran, that are frustrated. They're frustrated with, we talked about it earlier, the spending coming out of Washington. They're frustrated with the pandemic, and they're frustrated mainly with our leaders in Washington. And so that's really what I try to focus on, is put people over politics. I ran a disability organization. I got involved in the disability community when I was 19 years old, 20 years ago, because I have a best friend who happens to have Down syndrome. And my goal was to, throughout my career, and kind of through that trajectory, was to put people with disabilities first and foremost. There's so many inequities, and we don't have time to get into it on your show today, that the disability community faces, but I kind of sought out in my career to change that, and really got inspired through my experience working on the ABLE Act in Washington, D.C., with members on both sides of the aisle, getting them to understand the value that people with disabilities bring to society, but also the abilities that they have. And that's why we were so successful in getting the ABLE Act passed. I really wanted to take that experience to Washington, but really put it at the heart of my congressional campaign. And we did that. We had, volunteers knocking on doors every single day. We ran one of the most inclusive campaign teams. I had people with Down syndrome who were out knocking on doors with me. And so it was an incredible experience. We came up a little short, being the primary runner-up in that race, but look forward to channeling my energy and my excitement into some of these issues like term limits.
That's awesome.
James, notice something? All 3 of us are doing it free of charge. No, it's very important.
It is.
We are doing it because we believe in what we are doing. Mm-hmm. We're not doing it for political gain. We're not doing it for fame gain. We're not doing it for
Josh is doing it for fame. Come on.
Motive. We are doing it for the best thing for the American people. And I'm a bloody for it.
We're doing it for fame and infamy.
That's right.
I always say that I want to be loved by millions or despised by the exact same amount. I don't want to be moderately liked and accepted by everyone. I've said that. That's actually in A to Z quotes. That's a famous quote of mine. And I mean it, and I live my life by that. If you're not willing to take strong positions on things that you believe in, then why should anyone listen to you? Why should anyone tune into you? Why should anyone watch your show? And the name of the game has always been consistency. Have a consistent message, never change it for your audience or anything like that. And, back up what you talk about and be truthful and do your resourcing and make sure that you are never just speaking off the cuff and conspiratorial. Those things just, I don't understand how people can sleep at night when they do that. Or these people on YouTube that are still there that do these stupid, titles that don't make any sense when you look at the video. Like, I don't understand that. Your content should be strong enough to support the title. Okay, you don't have to run away from it. So when I do things, I try to be a non-echo chamber for conservative media. Like recently, I just did a huge story on the FDA's cover-up, including the big cosmetic industry's cover-up of breast implant illnesses. It's a real thing. People are getting sick. People are having autoimmune issues. People are dying from it. People are having major, major issues. Now, here I am, a male, but I can still, do things to take care of, women and people in society in general. The FDA has been hiding 446,000 cases of breast implant illness that they didn't post publicly on their database that they were supposed to. So I did a full expose And that's the types of things that I do, which is dangerous work, to be quite honest. But I would rather, die on my feet than live on my knees. And I love the fact that I have the ability and the voice to expose the people in either party that are doing, shady things. And I'll continue to do that.
Well, as we wrap up here with everybody, I want to start with IQ. IQ, how do we get your books and everything, my friend?
Well, the books are simple. And in Amazon trilogy, Lifting the Veil, The True Faces of Muhammad and Islam. But you don't have to buy it because you got everything else free of charge. Just Google Al-Rasuli, ALRASSOOLI, and you know more about Islam than the Imams.
Every time you spell your name, IQ, and I don't know, you probably are not going to know anything about this. Josh might, because he's a guy, he's a man about town and knows things about the world. But every time you spell your name, you remind me of Jeff Jarrett from the World Wrestling Federation when he used to spell his name. JEFFJARRETT. But Josh,
is that a compliment or
it is.
You just got me on that one. I follow wrestling, so I didn't know that.
It is. I learned how to spell Jeff Jarrett by him having a wrestling gimmick, and I've learned how to spell.
Being a kid, MISSISSIPPI, right?
That too. That one.
I'm dating myself.
So, Josh, mention the website and how we become a member and all the various things.
Yeah, it's joshbernsteinuncensored.com, and it's JOSH and then BERNSTEIN, and then, of course, uncensored, UNCENSORED.com. I cover things that social media bans. I cover things that the media completely ignores. And I always say if it's banned on social media, you'll find it on the website. So check it out, uncensored.com, joshbernsteinuncensored.com. Sara, become a member. And if you want, there's a tier level there. If you want, you can have a banner ad on the bottom of the show that would promote your organization.
Fantastic. Absolutely. I look forward to
And
following.
it's very affordable.
So Sara, how do we get in touch with you and the websites and everything else?
Wonderful. No, you can go to termlimits.com to sign up for our emails, but of course, take the pledge. You can take the supporter pledge, and then also through our database, we'll definitely reach out and contact you to help encourage your Kansas state senators and state representatives to help support the resolution effort that we'll be embarking here momentarily.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Thanks for being a good sport and hanging out with me and IQ and Josh today. This has been fun.
Anytime. I really appreciate the opportunity to get the word out on term limits, and hopefully you'll have me back.
Yes, we definitely will. Well, thanks to everybody, and I will talk to Josh and IQ next week. And Sara, I will talk to you soon. Thank you, my friend.
Wonderful. Have a great afternoon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. There they go. And there we go. You can go to our website at jiggyjaguar.com. Yes, JIGGYJAGUAR.com. I might as well